أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له وأشهد أن محمدا عبده ورسوله أما بعد فأعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم وإن لكم في الأنعام لعبرة نسقيكم مما في بطونه من بين فرث ودم لبنا خالصا سائغا للشاربين ومن ثمرات النخيل والأعناب تتخذون منه سكرا ورزقا حسنا إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يعقلون وأوحى ربك إلى النحل أن اتخذي من الجبال بيوتا ومن الشجر ومما يعرشون ثم كلي من كل الثمرات فاسلكي سبل ربك ذللا يخرج من بطونها شراب مختلف ألوانه فيه شفاء للناس إن في ذلك لآيات لقوم يتفكرون. Respected elders, fellow brothers and sisters and children, why are we gathered here today? Think about this for a second. And as you heard from our preceding speakers and respected other sub as well, that the purpose of our gathering here today is to remember the Holy Prophet ﷺ and his actions. Now, why would you want to do that? And the main reason is, think about this. Remember, I'm talking to all of you, especially our young children here. Okay? And the reason is why we're here to remember the Holy Prophet is that, and follow this perfect man out of love, is because by loving the Holy Prophet, we get Allah's love. And Allah says, if you love me, you have to obey and follow the Holy Prophet. So all this effort that we're doing today is trying to get Allah's love. You see the chain here? And that's our intention as well. Okay? So, and Allah has promised that He loves those who, you love His beloved, He loves you. So inshallah, there will be many diverse ways for us to achieve this objective today, and I humbly will try my best in this regard in this presentation. And I'll be speaking to you briefly on the aspect of physical health and instructions, and the whole presentation is based on the life and teachings of our Holy Prophet, beloved Master, Muhammad Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Sounds good? Okay? Now, the agenda, as you can see, is very simple as before. We're going to cover a little bit of the theory and kind of the perfect teaching in Islam about physical health. And we're going to go into the life of the examples of the Holy Prophet, Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and it will be an interactive format. Now, I'm going to give you this, notice earlier on. There will be a question and answer session at the end, and there will be some prizes to give away. So I advise all of you, especially younger people, to be a little bit alert and pay attention, because you can learn something and benefit from it. Sounds good? Okay, great. Okay. So from the aspect of, how when you think of religion, you think about these are all the things you have to do from salat, all these spiritual instructions, right? And we live in this physical world. And sometimes in other religions, you look at it, like if you look at one extreme, all they do is meditate all day. And the other extreme, they just do all the physical. But the beauty about Islam is that it's a perfect balance. And this relationship is that, the body that we've been given, Allah has given us a body, that actually is a trust. And in it, there's a relationship. The relationship is very subtle. And the promised Messiah ﷺ explains this relationship out of, interpretation of the Holy Prophet. And as you can read the quote, essentially what he says is that when you observe it carefully, the body that we have is the mother of the soul. And if the body is sick, it affects the soul. It's kind of like the mother, the body of the mother. So if you think of it from that analogy and think of it later on, there's more meaning to it. And health is a great blessing. So much so that the Holy Prophet has said this advice. He goes, ask Allah for forgiveness and health. For after being granted certainty, nothing is better than giving health. And if you remember, like the other khutbah 2 weeks ago, Hazur talked about something, and he said that, one of the greatest blessings in this life is health, of this world, not of the next. So think about this. And all this, the reason why we're explaining all this is that health is important, as much as the spiritual. So we should be mindful of these instructions that we're going to get, and try to adopt them, because not only the spiritual is important, so is the physical. Sounds good? Okay? All right. Now, another aspect of it, and this is something that we can learn from, is that, especially the teenagers and people growing up who are subjected to various interpretations of body health and stereotypes, is that we are given the blessing of health from Allah. And this body that we have is unique and beautiful in its own way. And the practice of the Holy Prophet ﷺ was that he was so thankful and appreciative of what Allah had given him. Namely, the first thing you're given is your body, right? It's your health. So anytime he looked in the mirror, he used to pray. He used to say, "Oh Allah, make my nature as pleasing as my body." So it's a beautiful prayer. It's a comprehensive thought in the sense that a beautiful body is a blessing from Allah. And it shows that in this religious matters, the body matters, and that as good as the body is pleasing to you, you want your inside to be even more beautiful. So this is a beautiful illustration of, and especially for the kids growing up, is that you be appreciative of what you have. Every time you look in the mirror, you be thankful, and you remember how the Prophet did. And you should appreciate that he was very thankful, right? And as they say, beauty is in the eye of the beholder. So the first beholder should be you of your own body. Okay. And then the second thing is that, the Holy Prophet also said that a strong believer is better than a weak believer. Now think about this. So as you guys are growing up, it behoves you to pay attention and be strong as you can for the services that we need to do in the future and the requirements that are going to be required of us. Okay? All right. With that, let's move on to a little bit about the practice of the Holy Prophet. As we mentioned in the agenda, we talked a little bit about the precedents. And interesting as a topic this is, and Sarah said, as you mentioned this, I had an interesting discussion with a few people, and many people commented about this one thing. The Holy Prophet, like the elders, they said the Holy Prophet didn't eat much. Some of them even went as far to say that, Hazrat Dawood, as Islam used to fast every other day, the Holy Prophet was much better than him, like in that regard. However, in light of that practice, because he had his own reasons and his spiritual power, we should use hikmah and understanding of what was available to him and just general practice. And that is the idea. Yeah, that is the general idea of what we're trying to do. So I'll go over some of his practices and tendencies, and keep in mind, some of it is subjective to the area he was in, but generally we should look a little bit beyond it to see what is the significance and the meaning and see how we can adopt it. Sounds good? Okay. So in general, as I mentioned before, he ate very moderate. He was a very moderate person, and he ate moderately. But when he did eat, and his choice was, he would eat the purest and the most wholesome food. And in Arabic, in the Quran, it means tayyib. So it was one step beyond halal. So that was his practice. It means that, obviously, if you want to follow the high standard, that's what he did. And his preference always was to, if he had food on him, to share. And if you remember from my previous presentation, the practice of the Prophet when he was young, he would take his food and give it to others, right? The Holy Prophet was at the pinnacle of that. His family would go hungry for days first, and he'd make sure other people had food. And that is the general preference. And I remember reading something, he used to say that if food is available, looks like food is available for 2, it should be for 4. If it's available for 4, it should be for 8. So the need and motive behind this, and what we can take is that food should not be limited just to a few, if you can. And the most pleasing food inside of Allah is the one that's shared with others. And inshallah, we'll be practicing this sunnah today as well. Sounds good. All right. Now, there's going to be a lot in the seerat of his life and in the practice of life, many things he did and the wisdom behind it. And there's going to be, he used food for medicine as well, based on what we had. There's a whole body of knowledge outside called Baitul Nabi, and it's basically people in the centuries and the Arabs who've taken some of the health teachings of the Holy Prophet. There's some hadiths, there's some extracts. But our purpose today is to just get the salient point to understand what is a good starting point, right? And the starting point is that, okay, first let's understand our master, what is his practices, and what we can do. So his favorite drink, and this is for the gentleman here who had Coke earlier on today, the little gentleman here, was cold water. And there's a actual prayer, Allahumma inni as'aluka, and the end of the prayer is that, make my love for you, Allah, more refreshing than ma'al barid, cold refreshing water. So for the Arabs and for the Holy Prophet, cold refreshing water was the pinnacle, the best possible beverage. However, that wasn't the only thing he drank. There's another type of beverage he drank called nabis. And nabis, because we're not from Arab, is like Arabia, we're not Arab, is a special beverage made from either dates or raisins. And the practice of the Holy Prophet, and there's a lot of hadiths backing this up in the 6 hadiths, is that he would instruct that you take dates, and ajwa dates, as we will soon see, are the pinnacle dates, soak them after Isha overnight in water, covered, and in the morning you drink that water. And there's a lot of science and wisdom in this, because somehow dates and the assimilation of that thing gets embedded in the water and it's easily digestible. And in the morning, after a fast of that type, this type of liquid with this type of date essence is perfect. It's a perfect tonic. It's called alkalizing tonic. So you don't need to spend money on these alkalizing energy drinks. After Isha, fill up a jar of water, put some dates or raisins, each had its own benefit, and drink that in the morning first thing, on an empty stomach. So that was one example. Now, there were many foods he had, and some he ate based on the situations he was in, but he was very fond of gourd, which in Urdu means kaddu. And as you can see a little bit there, that I think there's some various shapes, and they come from different families, but the gourd from Arabia, kaddu, that is the one that he was fond of. And science shows that it is very good for you for the stomach. And this whole discussion is on food and the stomach, and the Holy Prophet has said that the majority of the diseases come from the stomach. So if we, in this respect, want to live a healthy life, we should, as we adopt the manner of the Holy Prophet, we can then we improve our health and safeguard from many of these practices. Okay? And another thing that he enjoyed was talbina. And talbina, actually, who here knows what barley is? Have you heard the word barley? I mean, this day and age, we hear wheat, whole wheat, right? Right. So barley is an ancient grain, like spelt in some of the old grains that had some benefit. And at the time of the Prophet, they didn't have these refined tools, so they had very coarsely grounded barley. And they make their bread, roti, if you call it, unleavened bread. And generally, one of his most medicinal use items was a talbina, which is barley soaked in water. And generally, what would happen is that there was some portion of the ground, like the grain, and it would be grounded, and it would be soaked in water, and it became like a porridge, like some type of porridge type consistency, like oatmeal, but way healthier. And they would use this, and he would say that this was very useful for the stomach and the heart conditions. And many hadiths in the 6 show that if you were grieving, if there was like a source or something happening, they would do this. And if someone was sick, they would say the household of the Prophet, the stove, the fire would keep on running until 2 things happened. So the person got better or died. And talbina was one of the first things that was given. So think about this. These are something to consider. We can try. See me afterwards or my wife for the recipes. We have some research on this too. But at the very least, it should pique your interest. What is these things, right? Let's have a look at them. And then, if you can look at this, this is a barley bread actually. It's called unleavened bread that doesn't rise. It's made with the grain, and it's very compact and dense. And now think about this. It's a very dense bread. It's not as refined as light, fluffy. Forget the white bread, which is the most unnutritious bread. These are like the old grains, and the way they made them was very thick and hard. And when they got even drier, they could barely be eaten. And now you understand that when the Holy Prophet would find like a few tukre of this, like pieces of this, and take some vinegar and eat this, this was his like lifestyle. Okay? You got to see it. Now the last thing that he was really fond of, and one of his most favorite dishes was called tharid. And tharid is a meat stew. Now, based on his lifestyle and his battles, his teeth, and his condition, he preferred soft meat that didn't get stuck in his teeth. And of the meat, he liked the shoulder, because the shoulder was one of that type of meat, the animal, that was like very soft and easy to chew. And the way tharid is made is like it's a stew of like meat, boneless meat. And in that stew, they add a few things. And normally he was very fond of kaddu, gourd. So you can see that in the picture in the middle, there's like some kaddu put in there. And generally at the end, it kind of looks like aloo gosh at some level, right? At some level, right? But a little bit healthier because, you know, the amount of oil we put in our aloo gosh is probably not the same thing. So this actually was his favorite thing, and he would put the barley in there, and the reason why he liked it was that the barley, the unleavened bread, this bread, would digest and soak in and digest easily. And there's some hadiths out there that he would say this is the most superior food in his perspective. Now, it's very interesting that based on what he had, and it was a wholesome food as well. Okay? So these are some of the foods in general that what he did. And there's going to be more. And he actually used wisdom. If you remember what I had mentioned is that he ate various fruits with wisdom. And the reason is that in natural health and some of these medical knowledge, there was an association of hot and cold temperament. Some foods are hot, like dates. Some melons were cold. And even in homeopathy and some other type of natural medicine, we think about that. And the Prophet used to say that because sometimes these foods are hot, they're good for you certain times, and they're not. And for example, he would eat dates with melons, because he said one would complement the other. So there's going to be a lot more wisdom in this, and some of this we will learn in the future, but generally, these are some of the practices, okay? Now, remember this, because you'll be quizzed on this. Pay attention to these slides, okay? So these are some of his general instructions on food and drink. They're pretty much his actual instructions. Some are verbatim from these, some are from his practices, but let's go through them. The first one that you as a child learn, as a child growing up, is Ya Gulamo Samatala Kul Bi Yaminika wa Mimma Yalika. Listen, child, eat with your right hand and eat in front of you. So no more eating with left hand, right? If you love the Holy Prophet, this is one of his first instructions to children. And then secondly, if eating a group of company, generally the circle is preferred, but generally wherever you eat in company, you always should start with your right? And that was a good practice. And do not eat quickly and in haste, right? Take time to chew the food. And science is subjected to this. The people who do this gain less weight, the enzymes activated in their mouth, digestion is much better. But forget that. I mean, the science will back everything up eventually, and it takes longer, but this was the practice. And most importantly, drink sitting down. And there's a few instructions for this, and the science is catching up to this, is that the way the organs are compressed and everything is there, the water has a chance to get absorbed maximum from all the organs versus flowing right through. So when you're on a journey, and for example, you don't want to make as many stopovers, it's better to drink sitting down before the start of the journey, as a good suggestion, right? It's a very practical application of that. And as he said, do not drink in one big gulp like a camel, but in 2 or 3 breaths or intervals. And you start with Bismillah and end with Alhamdulillah, right? And this is also, another point is that very important, is that do not drink from uncovered. Vessel means like a container of water or any liquid. And generally, the practice of his was that he really did not want anything uncovered, and milk especially. And there's various narrations that like a Bedouin someone came with some milk from an area and it was uncovered. He goes, you should have covered it at the very least, put a piece of wood over it. And the 4th Khalifa in his book Steps to Exercise, Verzish ke Zine, has mentioned that if milk uncovered generates about 2 billion with a B bacteria, like in an hour. So, and then Hazur goes on to say, how can you be healthy if you have that many bacteria in you? So, I mean, the simple point is that if you have something at home, whatever, and you're good at it, you should cover it. I always cover my water, I always cover my milk, everything, and that's a good practice. Okay? And keeping track of all these points? Okay. Now, there's going to be more instructions on this too, but generally he's known to have said that cow's milk is healing, its butter's medicine, and a few things about the flesh. But we'll leave that for now. And in the Arab culture at that time, they would actually rub butter from the fresh cows from the thing onto the teeth of the teeth where the children were generating teeth. And science and some of the actual natural health and medicine shows that the components of butter and some of the essential components that are in there are very necessary for teeth formation as well, and including vitamin K2. Okay. And the other thing this can apply to our elders and everyone is that he said that make sure that you do not go to bed hungry. You should eat even if it's a few dry pieces a day and night, because if you don't, you age faster. And I remember Hazur in one of his, sermons has also mentioned that in our culture, if at the very least you should drink some milk or something, versus going to bed hungry, and there's some significance in that. And in some of the cultures that we do, in our culture, Punjabi culture, is that warm milk at night, and that releases tryptophan, and that's a soothing effect for sleeping as well. And but one thing that we haven't really adopted, and that was the practice, and also the 4th Khalifa has recommended, is to take honey at night. And as we'll show you later on, honey is the perfect fuel for sleep. So the shortcut out of this is that if you were going to have milk at night, have some honey. Okay? And if you know you're going to have less sleep, have some honey at night. There's many reasons for it. Speak to me afterwards, but it's a whole area that they're just trying to figure out that how the perfect fuel it is for the brain for recovery. Okay? And some other instructions of like when you're sitting down, taking off your shoes, you should have a certain idea that how much you want to eat versus changing your mind based on other factors in front of you after. And he goes, there's benefit in that. And then lastly, and this is for the children as well, the Holy Prophet never found any fault with food. Never. If he didn't like it, he didn't eat it, but he never complained about it. His practice was that he ate what he liked and what he didn't. So, and the same thing the Prophet Messiah was. Remember, his wife had burnt that dish and he really enjoyed it. There was no complaint from any aspect of the food. Ye kya bana hai, ye kya cheez hai, all that type of stuff, right? So having said that, these are some of the things that you can, you really understand in this light that, this is the fineness of that character. Okay? Alright. Now in this, we're going to jump to another section, and in this section, it's going to be, you're going to learn some of these blessed foods from the Holy Quran, and please pay attention, and in the time, I'll ask our respective volunteers to start handing out some of these blessed foods from the Holy Quran as I speak. Please. Okay? Right. So, in the Holy Quran, if you mentioned I recited some verses of Surah Al-Nahl, chapter 16, I believe, verses 67 to 70, or 66 to 70, and in it I covered some very key, it's a beautiful verses about some of the things that Allah has created, some of the elements there. But generally, if you can see this table here, this is a good categorization of some of the key foods in the Holy Quran, right? And look at the fruits column. Let's go through it. So you have banana, date, fig, grape, pomegranate. Who here knows any verse of any chapter name of the Holy Quran based on any of these names? Huh? Anyone here? Any of these English names? What is the Arabic name, chapter name, anything? Sorry, I heard? Yes. Yes, the olive. What teen was zaytun actually. So the fig and the olive are together, right? Yeah, great. And then as you can see, there's various pomegranate, grapes. Gourd is kaddu. This is a term we don't really use in English, and generally. And there's obviously a few others. You see there's honey, milk, oil, water. And in the trees, there's a lot of special trees here, right? The low tree, the sidr tree, has a significance in it. The olive tree is a blessed tree. The Holy Prophet has mentioned it. Obviously, there's the great palm tree. Okay? So these are some of the actual foods of the Holy Quran. I'm going to leave this a little bit longer because I want you guys to take note of these. And you can see it. Fruits, vegetables, herbs, grains. Okay. And now, as you can see, we're passing on some of these wholesome foods. And these are not regular foods, actually. Some care has been taken to make sure you are able to share, some of these organic, very cultured, very refined, very, wholesome tayyib foods as well. Okay? Watch your feet as well. Now, milk. Let's talk about milk. If you remember from the verse of the Holy Quran that in between the parts of the stomach, Allah says that there is a food that is wholesome and pure. So the word wholesome and pure is used for milk. Now, a caveat to this is that in this modern day and age, not like the old practices, most of the milk that we get has gone through some type of tabdili or a variation of the original practices. And as a result, some have faced, unfortunately, allergies and stuff. So the milk that we are going to try today is from the cow of Guernsey. It's a special breed of cow where the milk is golden yellow, okay? And it's not one of those cows like the Jersey cows that are made for mass manufacturing. The protein in there is from the A2 protein. For all those scientific people, means that this is one of those proteins that is less likely to cause any allergic reaction, and it has the beneficial enzymes, and you can taste some of the sweetness to it. Okay? So this is the Guernsey milk. And as you can see why we have the milk, it's a complete food source. It has protein, fats, vitamins, minerals, enzymes, beneficial bacteria. And one thing that actually is one of the finest of how, if it's high quality milk, is that if the cow has eaten good quality grass, it actually synthesizes K2, which is a very rare vitamin. There's K1 and K2, and right now, for children in the early stages of life, the K2 vitamin is very important. Okay. So that's milk. Okay. On to the other one, honey. Honey, you've heard about it, right? Therein is a cure for men, from the verse of the Holy Quran. Okay? And in honey is one of those things where you can't do justice to it. It is a cure for a lot of things. And a lot of research is coming onto it now that it has flavonoids and antioxidants. You can reduce risk of certain cancers, improve and reduce heart diseases, right? Improve stomach health, reduce ulcers, disorders, athletic performance, increase. And for all those people who are into sports and working out and like long distance running or anything, honey is the perfect fuel for restoration of the glycogen levels, and especially for recovery rates. So if you are going like a very intense exercise and you want to really recover, now it's honey. And I know that now some of the cyclists in the long distance running, they have honey packets. And part of this, inshallah, we will get some of these samples later on. Okay? And obviously you can reduce your cough. Anything you can think of is there. Now, one of the key aspects of honey that gets unnoticed is that its benefit to the skin. It has been used now, modern medical science, and also hospitals in France and clinics in Switzerland, the top clinics, are using special grade honey to repair skin issues. They're finally understanding what we knew all along. And they're using it. I actually know personally of colleagues who've been in car accidents, who've gone to very expensive clinics in Switzerland, and they're using silver with honey to actually repair the skin grafting and all that. And out of those honey, there's a special honey that the fourth Khalifa is very fond of, and it's very powerful. It's called Manuka honey. And that is what you are sampling today. Manuka honey is a very special and rare type of, not rare, well, it's indigenous to New Zealand, and it's a limited supply. And it is known for its medicinal properties. It can take care of a lot of infections, from strep throat to staph infections. You go to hospitals. It can actually heal eczema for babies, skin. It has a lot of other properties, and it can. So normally the people who really love the value, in the medicine cabinet you have those doctor medicines. People have a high-grade small jar of Manuka for these things. Someone gets sick, here, take a spoon. You have this burn, let's try this out. So it's actually a blessing of Allah that we can use it for many ways. And this is this Manuka honey we wanted to share with you to show that this is not a normal type of honey that you get, a clover honey. It's a very special type of honey, comes from New Zealand. There's different grades, and in it can heal your stomach. Especially in Barapa, for example, people unfortunately have gastric acids in their burp. If you take this half an hour before a meal, this honey, it alleviates all of that noise. It's very soothing. There's a lot of benefit in it, okay? And this is called Manuka honey. Okay. Lastly, and most importantly, are dates. Now, dates have a very special significance, and especially to the Prophet. First of all, they're indigenous to that region, right? And they're very chock full of nutrients. So much so that, in various scenarios, that they're full of iron and minerals and all these things, and research has been coming out on how they're useful for many things, from Alzheimer's to all things. And they actually have B12, biotin, and they reduce cholesterol, fat levels. They improve, health and everything. And the ajwa date is the most beneficial of all the dates. Yes, and this ajwa is this very small black date. Like the ones we get here at the Majul or the California dates, they're indigenous to California. They came in the 1900s. People came from Arabia and made their own, plantations. But the ajwa date is unique, and the one in to Medina, and there's a special region as well, and that is the highest. It has medicinal properties, and so much so that it warrants its own explanation. There's many hadiths from Muslim, from Bukhari and Abu Dawud and all these others that show the significance. And in our culture, we are predisposed to heart deterioration, just the way congenital, from our South Asian culture. And in this culture, the best thing you can do is you can adopt this in your lifestyle. And there's some hadiths, and the Holy Prophet has been narrated by Hazrat Aisha, know that if you take 7 of these on an empty stomach in the morning for 7 days straight, it's a tonic for your stomach. It removes all stomach illnesses. You take the date, the pit. Many people have thrown the pits away. If you kept the pit, you grinded it, you have that pit, it actually cleans your arteries. It's proven. It's that. And if you mix it with pomegranate juice, even better. Because pomegranate actually has the same intricate vessels as like the heart, and there's similarity and wisdom in that too. And there's many things, and even the Holy Prophet has advised that if you're complaining of heart, go to this person, he will do this. So that is the ajwa date which you try. Remember the small black one. Now remember I mentioned earlier about nabis, that drink where you soak the dates? You could do majul, but the best ones would be with this ajwa date if you can get. So like, 100 grams in like a pitcher of water, overnight, you drink that in the morning, you'll get the benefit. Okay? Obviously eat the khajur too, but the drink as well. Okay? Now, interactive format. I need a volunteer here. No, the person who can actually give out the prizes. Is there anyone here? Anyone? Yeah, you. No, I mean, okay. Basically, it's a Q&A, and we're gonna give these special packets as well. Okay. Okay. All right. So we're gonna try to understand this sunnah. Got it? All right. Let's trust your understanding. All right. And this, actually, if the ladies have access to this, please. This is the interactive presentation. Do you remember the 2 slides I talked about the Holy Prophet? What did he instruct? I did the hadiths. Start telling me 3 instructions of eating and drinking. You, right there, yes. Out loud. 3.
You have to drink while you're sitting?
Yes. Drink while you're sitting. Good.
Don't chew your food fast.
Okay, great. Don't chew your food fast. Very good. Conscientiously. One more. You can ask help for a friend. Yes. So give them both one. Okay. All right. 3 more instructions of food and drink. And actually, if there's anyone in the ladies who like to participate, please let us know. And likewise, the same thing is happening. The ladies, they have similar things to give out as well. 3 more instructions different from these ones. Remember, we have 2 pages full.
Start with Bismillah and
Good. That's one. Very good. MashaAllah.
don't drink anything that was uncovered.
Good, very good. That's a very beneficial. You get very less germs in your body. You become healthier. 2, great. You can get help. Anyone can help him, obviously. Yes. So both of them get one. Okay. All right. Anyone from the ladies? Before we go on to the next topic, there's many questions. Don't worry. Okay. Next one. Mention 3 fruits from the Holy Quran. There's a whole table full, right? And Sadr Sahib is excluded because his knowledge surpasses ours. Yes, you. Yes. Yes, good. 1. You're paying attention. And you had a date too, right? You tried it? MashaAllah, good. 2 more. Okay. Okay. Go ahead.
Pig?
Yes, good.
Olive.
Olive. Oh, olive is not a fruit, you don't get one, sorry. Until you do your fruits and veggies, then you will. Okay, next. Pomegranate, sure. Sure. Okay. Anyone from the ladies, please? Anyone wants to say, feel free. The mic is good answers? Okay. I mean, we've had this. Okay, how about 3 vegetables from the Quran?
You want to try again? Oh.
No, 3. Okay. Yeah, give me. It's fine. Okay. The whole idea is to take part. Okay? And then 3 vegetables. Actually, 2 more vegetables. Anyone just name them out because vegetables are equally as important. Yes.
Onion?
Onion, sure. What else?
Kaddu.
Oh, kaddu, yes. Gourd. And remember, the Prophet really liked kaddu. Remember that bit, okay? The Prophet really liked kaddu, gourd. Okay? Now, 3 drinks or edible items, other things that you could consume from the Holy Quran. Anyone else? New people.
Water.
Any respected Ansar Qudam? Anyone?
Water, milk.
Yes. Great, he should get one too. Yes, water and milk were one of those things.
Honey.
Yes, honey. Whoever said honey gets one. Those were given to you, so at the very least, the 3 things given to you, you should have actually gotten those right? Okay, great. Okay. Now, lastly, 3. This is the interesting 3 trees from the Holy Quran. Olive, okay, very easy one, okay. 2 more?
Date.
Palm is right, but you already got one, thank you. Not fig.
Figs?
No, not the tree. The tree is not mentioned. Fig tree is not mentioned. Yes. Lote, yes, you should get one too. Manuka, high grade honey, thank you. So it was palm, Jazakumullah so much. Alright? It was palm, lot, and olive, or the 3 key ones. Right? The sidr tree is a very important tree. All right, and obviously we actually went through the prize a little bit earlier, but the key thing was like, why are we here, and that was it. So now in closing, what we should ask ourselves these questions. We went through some knowledge today, right? How can we benefit from this, right? Think about this. And the way we can benefit from this, and the way we are different from other Muslims, is that we can actually reflect on these practices and try to understand the deeper meaning versus just being literal people. Because most of them don't have this knowledge and this Masih guidance that we have with the Quantum Messiah. We don't want to be those literal people. We want to understand why the significance of these practices so we can adopt them in our variations. Because, for example, some of the things we don't have access to easily. And some of the things that the Holy Prophet didn't have access to that we have now, right? So we really need to get beyond that and start thinking about it. And only then can you follow the Sunnah in this new light. And for example, a good example of this is that you don't need to ride a camel horse to fulfill the Sunnah. It is the manner and spirit and your niyat and your of how you do things. For example, that car ride could be the same blessings as you would if you rode the camel. Sarita, what was the name of the camel of the Holy Prophet? The term, it had a special name. It was like a name actually given to it. But the camel of the Prophet. It was okay. So I forgot the name, but it reminds me of a story, incident that my Papa Murabi, Lekam Tarsa, once narrated that he's a Murabi in UK, and obviously with very simple means. And when he went to see Musih Rabi Ramla, his car, and the missionaries have very limited budgets, so the car was not working well. And he said it in such a way that it made me ponder and reflect. He said that politely to Hazur, if you could kindly pray for the camel of Allah. I really wanted the car to be fixed. So in that respect, anything he went on his missionary duties in that car became as if the camel of Allah for that same purpose. So you see how that spirit of Sunnah is alive then? And this is what we learn from our elders, in this respect. Right? And it's the same thing. The Holy Prophet, when we said he's eating pure foods, there was no avocado there. Avocado is like a very good food, right? It's wholesome, it's pure, it's good. So it's that same type of thinking that we have to realize, that how can we, adapt this in there? And most importantly, we do all of this, guys, out of why? Why do we do anything out of all this? Out of love of Prophet. Right? Yes, exactly. We've hit the point today. We hit the point and we go on, we'll realize this is all out of love, okay? And in closing, we talked a bit about a few things. We talked about, the importance of health, why we need health, Don't just worry about spiritual, you need to take care of your body because it matters. It is a good relationship, right? We went through some of the foods of the Holy Quran, it improves your knowledge. Some people learn what vegetables are, some people learn what fruits are as well, right? Exactly. And, we went through the life and teachings. And this, I kid you not, you can spend hours on this. And this is one of those things that the more you deep dive, you found appreciation and love for the Prophet, how he did things. The wisdom was so intact. And so in closing, I'm going to leave you with a quote of the Holy Prophet. And this will keep us the tone. And he says that there's an organ in the body when it is healthy. The whole body is healthy. And when this is sick, the entire body becomes sick, and it is the heart. So it is in this care of the physical heart that we create necessary conditions for spiritual growth. Ya Rabbi salli ala nabiyyika da'iman fi hazi dunya wa ba'as insani.